Welcome to the recorded version of Working After Retirement, part of the Family Caregiver Support webinar series brought to you by the American Society on Aging and a generous sponsorship from Home Instead Senior Care.
Okay, our presenter today is Lakeland Hogan. Lakeland is a gerontologist and caregiver advocate for Home Instead Senior Care. Lakeland works to educate professionals, families, and communities on issues older adults face. Lakeland is a doctoral candidate at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, where she is studying social gerontology. She has a Master of Arts in Social Gerontology and a Master's in Business Administration from UNO. Lakeland has professional experience in the private and public sectors of senior care services. She has worked on special projects for UNO's Department of Gerontology and the local area agency on aging. Lakeland serves as Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Dreamweaver Foundation and is active in the Alzheimer's Association's Walk to End Alzheimer's. Lakeland has a passion for helping others, especially aging adults and their families. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Lakeland Hogan. Thank you for joining us, Lakeland.
Thank you so much, Steve. Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful that you've joined me today. We are going to be talking about a new topic this month, and that's working after retirement. And this is really a growing trend that we're seeing in today's society. As people are living longer, their traditional views of retirement are changing. And as professionals in the aging field, we might find ourselves working with older adults who are currently employed or who have a goal of going back to work after retirement. We know for older adults, some make the choice to work past the traditional retirement years, while others work out of necessity to pay their bills and maintain their lifestyle. We may also encounter people who have to stop working as a result of health issues or due to cognitive decline. We also will find ourselves working with professionals in our own workplaces that are older, and therefore, with all things considered, it's important for us to know about the trends in working after retirement so that we can best support older workers and direct them to necessary resources. And today we're really going to dive a lot deeper into this topic. So to get us started, I thought we'd look at some objectives. So my hope is that by the end of this webinar, you'll learn about the current statistics of older adults in the workforce today, and understand the benefits that working can have for older adults. And then also, we're going to be talking about post-retirement work opportunities. So let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at some of the statistics and research out there on working after your retirement years. Not everyone is counting down the days until their retirement age. And in fact, the traditional retirement age is no longer a firm stopping date for many older workers. The road to retirement is changing and may look different for everyone. It no longer seems to be the straight, clear path it once was. Many are taking new turns and exploring new opportunities. This growing trend is reflected in a Gallup poll that was done back in 1995. In this poll, people were asked if they plan to continue working after age 65. And back at that time, again, this was in 1995, only 14% said yes. Gallup redid that poll last year in 2017 and found that 74% of Americans say that they plan to work past the traditional retirement age, either full-time or part-time. So that statistic has grown significantly. And while the stereotypical or traditional retirement experience is still a reality for some, others are continuing to work either full-time or cutting back to part-time in their retirement years. Many are also starting small businesses. In fact, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that people age 65 and older are the most likely to be self-employed than any other age group. Many older adults are also giving of their time in volunteer roles in their local communities. The Bureau of Labor Statistics also reports that the median annual hours spent on volunteer activities for those age 65 plus was higher than any other age group, and that median range is 94 volunteer hours per year. Again, that's for those 65 plus. And much of that time they found, the Bureau found, is spent serving through religious organizations. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you a chart that further shows some of these trends. This chart is taken from the 18th Annual Trans-America Retirement Survey. And as you can see, over the past 5 years, there's been a decrease in the percentage of people who say that they do not plan to work after retirement. But there's also a growing trend in the percentage of people who expect to be working either full-time or part-time. In addition, the Trans-America survey found that only 18% of respondents were confident that they'd be able to retire comfortably and live a comfortable lifestyle. More than half of those that responded said that they plan to work after age 65 and not retire at all. The Bureau of Labor Statistics also reflects these trends in their estimate that over the next 10 years, workers age 55 and older are expected to become an even larger part of the U.S. workforce, rising from 23.1% in 2017 to 23.7% in 2027. And again, this chart, you can see the difference in people who say, yes, I plan to work full-time. That percentage has certainly grown over the last 5 years. And same with the percentage that plans to work part-time. And of course, there are people who still do not plan to work after retirement, but that number has seemed to remain consistent or shrink. So we do see some trends that older workers are becoming more and more common. So Home Instead Senior Care wanted to dive deeper into the reasons behind why older workers are continuing to work past retirement years. In a new survey called Unretire Yourself, a North American research report by Home Instead, Inc., the people surveyed were in the United States and Canada, and they were surveyed to determine attitudes around returning to work after retirement. In the survey, those who are working after retirement were asked, why did you return to work? And financial stability was the #1 motivator. And this is perhaps due to the fact that they need additional income, due to a lack of retirement savings, or due to their increased medical costs. Also, for those born between the ages of between the years of 1943 and 1954, they don't receive full retirement benefits until age 66. So therefore, they worked past age 65. And one last reason for this high number is that it could be that some choose to work until age 70 in order to receive the maximum Social Security benefit, which could then lead to a higher monthly benefit for those older workers. So those are some additional reasons behind that likely financial motivator. And while money is an important overall factor in older workers' desire to return to work, the second most important motivator for those who have unretired is to fight boredom. And my aunt and uncle are a perfect example of this. They retired and sold their small business years ago. And in the years following their retirement, they remodeled parts of their home. They did some deep cleaning, took a few trips that they'd been looking forward to. But after a few years of retirement, they found themselves getting restless, and both of them decided to return to work. They found jobs that they enjoyed and ones that were significantly less stressful than the hustle and bustle of small business life. And then the third reason that people indicate they went back to work is to keep their mind sharp. Cognitive engagement is important in reducing the risk of cognitive impairment in older adults. And working can provide cognitive stimulation and, equally as important, social connections, which can also help reduce the risk of cognitive impairment. In the survey, the older adults that are working past retirement were also asked about their favorite aspects of their job. 51% said that they're doing something that they enjoy. For many working after retirement, they've chosen a job that's far more in line with their interests and passions as opposed to their previous career ambitions. They also, 46% of them also cited that their favorite aspect of their job in unretirement is that they get to use their brains. And I just mentioned that cognitive engagement can be very beneficial and working can certainly help keep their mind sharp. And since financial stability was such a strong factor in working after retirement, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that motivator. Financial stability was the number one motivator of working after retirement, and in fact, according to the Home Instead survey, 27% of people said they returned to work out of fear of running out of money. And when we look at financial stability for older adults, it's commonly referred to here in the United States as the three-legged stool. And here in the U.S., that three-legged stool is made up of Social Security, workplace retirement, and individual savings. So these are the three areas that older adults rely on for income in their retirement years. Today, baby boomers and older adults are at a greater risk than ever of being short of cash in retirement for several reasons, one of them being the recession of 2008. Older women are also at a higher risk of financial insecurity due to the fact that they may have taken time off of work to raise children or to care for an aging loved one. In that Trans-American survey that I mentioned earlier, only 12% of respondents reported that they are very confident that they will be able to fully retire with a lifestyle that they consider to be comfortable. So more and more Americans are finding that this three-legged stool, while it provides some sense of financial security, they still need to continue working to provide for all of their financial needs post-retirement. So let's talk briefly about each of these legs of the three-legged stool. So the first is Social Security. And many of you probably know about Social Security, but it's available to older adults that have worked and paid Social Security taxes for a minimum of 10 years to be eligible for Social Security. And eligibility age, I'll get to that in just a moment, but the benefits that they receive once they reach Social Security age occur monthly. For those born between the years of 1943 and 1960, so this affects many of the baby boomers, the age for full retirement benefits gradually increases up to age 67. And there's a sliding scale based on the year that you're born. And for those born after 1960, the common retirement age is 67. There are some options for people to receive Social Security benefits earlier than the typical retirement age, and there's also an option to delay benefits up until age 70. And if anyone wants to learn more about that, please visit the Social Security Administration website. They have a retirement or a Social Security benefits calculator where you can type in the year that you're born and your income to see how much Social Security you will likely receive once you get to retirement age. But the second leg of the stool is workplace retirement plans. Many workplaces these days offer retirement plan saving options, but gone are the days of those pension plans that once were. And they have been replaced by saving plans such as 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. And then the third leg of the stool is individual savings. And this would include a personal savings account, investments, home equity, and inheritance, just to name a few. According to the Transamerica survey, people are expecting a diverse source of income in post-retirement, and 39% cite working as an expected source of retirement income. Madeline and Rao also found that 4 in 10 non-retirees at age 60 expect to continue working to fund their retirement. So, to sum this all up, for many older Americans, this three-legged stool, this traditional model of funding our retirement, is really expanding to a four-legged stool, if you will, adding work to those three options that I just went over. So when we talk with older adults about working past retirement years and saving for retirement, more and more are considering work as that additional income to help them live the retirement life that they would most enjoy. So when looking at career fields that people are working in post-retirement, some are actually switching gears and switching career interests. The Home Instead survey found that 65% of unretired individuals that were surveyed had changed jobs or industries in their post-retirement job careers. The study also found that in those second careers, 78% felt it was really important to make a positive difference in the life of others when it came to the post-retirement job that they selected. And then when we look at the Transamerica study, they found that about half of workers would actually prefer to stay with their current employer when working past age 65 as they transition into retirement. And many companies are actually working with their employees to help with that transition to retirement. So for example, they might work with their employee to cut back to part-time or move them to a consultant role, whether that's for several months or even years before they fully retire. This can help, again, ease that transition. Or they might offer an option for the older worker to start working at home a few days a week leading up to retirement, again, to help ease that transition. So we talked a lot about the statistics behind working past retirement, but there are a lot of benefits, and so I wanted to spend some time talking about the benefits of working past retirement. And while these benefits, I'll kind of speak to them in relation to working past retirement, they can also apply to volunteering. There's a lot of research out there that shows similarities in the benefits of volunteering as the ones that we'll go over here in today's PowerPoint. So the first benefit of working after retirement is extra income. This is probably no surprise to any of you since I've already been talking at length about this, but for some, this extra income is necessary, and for others, it can be used for leisure. Several professionals that I've worked with in my time in one of the Home Instead franchise offices, the professional caregivers there, some of them definitely had to work out of necessity, but others talked about how their work as a caregiver was kind of their fun money. They used it for travel, for spoiling their grandchildren, and some of them even donated a good portion of their income to their favorite charities. So that extra income, again, can help fund their retirement or can be some extra discretionary income that they can use in whatever way they choose. Another benefit is a remedy for boredom. We talked earlier about how a top motivator for working after retirement was to fight boredom. And fighting boredom is something, or boredom isn't something that retirees always anticipate. They might not anticipate the isolation that can result when they leave the workforce or the absence of the type of work that they were used to doing that gave their life meaning and purpose. So finding a post-retirement career, maybe one that allows them to serve others or provides an opportunity for them to engage in a hobby or interest, can really bring back that feeling of fulfillment. Another benefit is boosting Social Security and the economy. People who are working longer will continue to pay Social Security taxes, and some will even delay their benefit, like I mentioned earlier, until age 70 to receive a larger benefit down the road. People also in the workforce into their later years is good for consumers and for the economy. Some would argue that keeping older workers in the workforce is depriving younger workers of opportunities. However, that is a myth. The more people who are contributing to the economy, the healthier the economy is. And there's also a great transfer of knowledge when you have multiple generations in the workforce, which I'll talk in more detail about here shortly. The fourth benefit is an antidote for the brain. You likely have heard the term use it or lose it, and that can be applied here when we're talking about brain power and staying mentally sharp. People who delay retirement have less risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementias. A study of nearly 500,000 people in France found that for each additional year of work, the risk of getting dementia was reduced by 3.2%. And as I mentioned earlier, this is another top reason that people are continuing to work after retirement. They want to stay mentally engaged. They want to stay sharp. And then the fifth benefit listed here is to increase their energy. Work, especially a job that is enjoyable, can be very invigorating. From finding a way to serve others to discovering a new mission or passion in life, unretirement can give older workers a reason to get up and out of bed in the morning. And we do have some more benefits here on the next slide. The sixth benefit is a longer life. Research has actually shown that working longer correlates to longevity. In fact, an Oregon State University research report found that working past age 65 could lead to a longer life, while retiring early could be a risk factor for dying earlier. The research also found that healthy adults who retired 1 year past age 65 had an 11% lower risk of death from all causes. And this was even the case when taking into account demographics, lifestyles, and health issues. Adults who described themselves as unhealthy were also able to live longer if they kept working. So all of this indicates that working after retirement could lead to a longer life. And then the seventh benefit is mentorship, and that's the giving and taking of mentoring. I mentioned that older workers have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and it can be really fulfilling to be able to pass along wisdom and advice and experience on to coworkers. However, there's also a lot that older workers can learn from the younger generations. So that intergenerational interaction can really be beneficial within a workplace. Now, intergenerational exchanges in the workplace can also create some challenges, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. The eighth benefit is better health. So working after retirement can lead to better health. Without the structure of a job, sometimes healthy habits could go by the wayside. A lot of employers today offer wellness programs, health incentives, and benefits. So once a retiree leaves the workplace and no longer has those wellness supports, it could make it more difficult for them to keep their weight down, to keep their activity levels up. Research from the University of Miami found that being employed or retired was associated with a greater risk of poor health across all health status measures, even after controlling for smoking status, obesity, and other predictors of health. Staying healthy can also help older workers continue working and is a motivator for job performance as well. Next is emotional health. Working after retirement has shown a positive correlation with improved mental well-being, specifically in the areas of depression. People who work after retirement, whether paid or unpaid, meaning volunteer work, were less likely to be depressed. And then for non-paid workers or volunteers, sustained volunteering through post-retirement years provided greater benefits to mental health than sporadic volunteer work. So it was more beneficial for them to have a consistent volunteer opportunity as opposed to just volunteering a few hours here and a few hours there. It's also important to recognize that with age comes loss, and this loss could be in friends and families members passing away or moving away. So a working environment can create important social connections and support for those facing loss. And for some, it can also act as a distraction to help ease the pain of loss and losing someone that you love. So there's several emotional health benefits. And then finally, I just mentioned social connections, and that's actually the last benefit listed here. Many people will tell you that they count their closest friends among the individuals that they've met in their careers or at their jobs. And from workplace outings to after-hour gatherings, social connections you make at work could last well into your retirement years, and staying socially connected is really important to healthy aging. So while these benefits are great, for those that are thinking about going into the workforce or re-entering the workforce, they may not know how to go about it. So I wanted to share some tips that we can pass along to those who are considering unretirement. So re-entering the workforce can be overwhelming for someone who has retired or for someone who is wanting to go back to work. Many older adults have probably been with an organization that they retired from for many years, so they may forget what it's like to interview, or they may not have spruced up their resume for years and years. They may have been used to paper applications, whereas a lot of job applications are now online. So these are some things that we need to consider when helping older adults reapproach the workforce. So first, it's really important for them to make a plan. We can encourage older adults to try not to get too far down the road without laying out some sort of a plan. They can also take inventory of their savings and assets to determine options for retirement or working after retirement and deciding a realistic path for their future. Also, it's important to encourage the older worker to search their soul, to really ask themselves, what do you want out of this last stage of life? Is there a job that you've always dreamed about that you now want to pursue? What are your interests, hobbies? What would an ideal job look like for you in your post-retirement years? And if an older adult has saved enough for retirement, he or she might not want to return to a job, but would rather look for more consistent volunteer opportunities, which certainly exist today. Or if they don't find a career that really excites them, they could look into starting that small business or becoming self-employed, fulfilling that dream that they've dreamt for years and years. They also may need to fine-tune their skills. For those interested in re-entering the workforce or shifting to a new career, it might involve some type of education, training, or reskilling. As people approach their 50s and 60s, they might realize that there are many more vital years ahead for them in terms of the workplace. So they may find themselves investing in new credentialing or training, or the job market might require them to pursue some additional education. Fortunately, many colleges and universities are starting to offer extension programs to older workers as well as career trainings, so they can look to their local education institutions in their community to see what they offer. We also want to encourage older workers not to sell themselves short, but to also still sell themselves. Older workers need to remember that they do have a lot to offer today's workforce. Many employers value the skills of older workers. There is a correlation between older workers' lower turnover and higher customer satisfaction, so they can really be valuable. Older workers can learn all that they can about the job or career they want to pursue. They can make sure they have the skills to do that job, and they can build a strong resume that reflects those abilities. And then they can use those tools to sell themselves when applying or interviewing for a job. And then finally, we want to encourage older adults to be realistic. For some older workers, their dream job may not quite be a reality. For example, maybe they've always wanted to be a tour guide, but now they've developed some back problems and they can't stand for long periods of time. So older workers should be realistic about what they can and cannot do. But at the same time, we don't want them to let those health issues prevent them from following their dream or from unretiring. So when looking for jobs, they want to look for jobs that can utilize their skill set or talk with the potential employer to see if there are possible job modifications that can be made. So having a plan in place and developing a strategy can really provide workers with that extra boost of confidence to land their next job or volunteer opportunity. But when we're working with older adults, whether or not they choose to work after retirement or volunteer, it's still very important for older adults to stay connected after retirement. And I wanted to share some reasons for that, or ways they can do that here on the next slide. So I've talked a lot about the importance of staying socially connected. We know that isolation can be very detrimental to the health and well-being of older adults. So after retirement, they might feel that they are becoming more isolated. They're not going to a work environment every single day. They're not engaging with as many people around them as maybe they once were. So finding ways for them to stay connected can be really, really important. And staying connected to their network is really vital. So that network could include family or friends. For those that continue to work, they will want to maintain a professional network. To do so, they might join a local business group or their chamber of commerce. For those that have hobbies that they really enjoy, oftentimes communities have social groups or organizations that cater to those various hobbies. Older adults can join those as well to expand their networks and meet people with similar interests. And another important way to stay connected is through faith communities. And keeping the faith or staying connected to their local faith communities not only provide for their spiritual wellness and spiritual needs post-retirement, a lot of religious entities, faith communities have opportunities for volunteering, making social connections. Some even have job opportunities that are available and perfect for someone who is wanting to unretire. And then it's really important for older adults to still stay physically active if they're able. As an older adult retires, maybe they're not working as much as they used to, they're not moving around as much as they used to. They tend to become less active, and their health could suffer as a result. This could then jeopardize their opportunity to unretire or go back to work, or the opportunities for them to volunteer. So older adults should consider some sort of health activity, and maybe that's joining a local gym, such as their local YMCA. But if that's not an option, one of the best forms of exercise is walking. And this is something that costs nothing and can be done with a friend. A lot of communities also have walking groups. Those are another opportunity to create those social connections, and engage in social activity. And then the fourth way to stay connected is to get support when and where you need it. When we look at older adults in their retirement years, there are a variety of reasons and circumstances that might require additional support. So it might be support in exploring a new career opportunity or volunteer opportunity. It might be support needed due to family obligations, such as caregiving. Or it could be support in the area of grief and bereavement due to the loss of a family member or friend. It could also be that they're experiencing short-term health issues or dealing with chronic conditions. That might require them to need support for short periods of time or for a more extended period of time. And it could be with tasks around the house or with their activities of daily living. So all of these are some examples of when older adults might need to turn to their network for support, those family members, friends, that faith community. It might also be times where they can reach out to professionals for help and support as needed. But by getting support in these areas, it can really allow them to continue enjoying their older years after retirement. And then finally, we never want to forget about having fun. No matter the age, whether you're newly retired or if you've been retired for years or continuing to work after retirement, it's still important to enjoy life and have fun. And one of the best ways for older adults to avoid depression is through socializing, keeping in touch with friends, making new ones, trying out new things, enjoying new experiences. These things can all bring joy, a sense of accomplishment, again, create new social connections, and maybe even open up new opportunities along the way. So again, these are just ways to stay connected post-retirement, whether or not you continue to work after your retirement years. And I've been talking a little bit about the challenges that older adults might have if they re-enter the workforce. So I did want to touch on that quickly. Working after retirement does present, again, some challenges that are worth mentioning. The first challenge, I've talked about this already a little bit, but now that people are working later in life, there are more generations in the workforce than ever. So there's about 4, or in some work situations, 5 generations working together. So just wanted to briefly touch on these various generations. The first is the silent generation, or the traditionalists, and this is the oldest generation in the workforce. They're born between 1925 and 1946. And they're characterized as being practical, dedicated, and loyal employees. They also respect authority, and work hard. And some challenges that they might face is that they might be inaccurately stereotyped as old-fashioned, rigid, and unwilling to change. So those are some things that they might experience in the workplace. And then we have our baby boomers, and those individuals were born between 1946 and 1964. They're characterized as competitive, focused, goal-oriented, and some describe them as optimistic, disciplined, and strong team players. And some challenges that they might face in the workplace is that this generation has been called power-driven workaholics, and they might be categorized as the me generation when they're pursuing personal gratification in their jobs. The next generation is Generation X, and this generation was born between 1964 and 1981. And this generation tends to thrive on a balanced life. They've been described as self-reliant and pragmatic. Some challenges they might face are stereotypes including cynicism, impatience, and selfishness, and they've also from time to time been called the slacker generation. Then we look at the millennials. There's a lot of buzz about millennials in the workplace. They're also referred to as Generation Y. They're born between 1982 and 1995. They're often characterized as hopeful, fun-seeking, and ambitious. But some challenges that they might face is that they might get a bad rap for being spoiled and disrespectful and being overly dependent on technology. And at times they might appear more demanding than previous generations. And then the final generation, Generation Z, is those that are born after the year 1995. This generation is very entrepreneurial and tech-savvy. They want independence, they're motivated by security, and multitasking generally comes natural to this group. But some challenges that they might face is they may expect the workplace to just conform to their needs, and while working hard, they expect to be rewarded. So it is important to take these generational differences into account and to understand how they might differ, but it's also equally important to find similarities and commonalities that exist among these generations in the workforce. And hopefully by finding those commonalities, it can help the generations work through any challenges that they might encounter in the workplace. So another challenge that older workers might face is related to their health. We know that the risk of chronic conditions increase as we age. These types of health issues may impact the older workers' productivity and may cause them to even miss work. It might also require some workplace accommodations to make the environment more suitable for older workers. And while these challenges exist, employers can often adjust to meet their needs. Also, the Americans with Disabilities Act has helped to create more accessible work environments, which could allow older workers with mobility issues the opportunity to continue working longer than they normally would. And then the final challenge that they might encounter is ageism in the workplace. And unfortunately, this is still present. Negative perceptions of older workers do exist, but the acceptance of older workers is growing. And from a policy perspective, age discrimination is prohibited by the Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967. So if an older worker believes they're a victim of age discrimination, such as being passed up for jobs, promotions, or pay raises because of their age, a person can contact the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission for assistance. And while these challenges exist, employers are actually taking a proactive approach to making their work environments more age-friendly. Several of the world's leading organizations have started adopting the guiding principles for age-friendly businesses. And again, this helps to create workplaces that embrace and support workers of all ages. And I'm going to share in just a little bit where you can download those guiding principles for an age-friendly business, and then you can propose them in your own places of employment. So when people are considering working after retirement, while these challenges exist, they hopefully can be worked through. And as more older workers continue to stay in the workforce, hopefully some of these challenges will be reduced in the future. Now I want to turn to some kind of hot jobs, if you will, when it comes to working past retirement. So one career opportunity that's becoming more and more popular among older workers is drivers. This requires little training, and it offers a lot of variety. There are drivers needed in places like senior living communities, floral shops, or grocery stores, anywhere that delivers items. Actually, this gentleman here pictured, his name is Rich. He's a retired veteran. He also worked for a major food processor for many years. And in his post-retirement life, he worked first as a groundskeeper and now as a driver at Heritage Communities, which is a senior living community. And he really enjoys his job, driving his older clients around to doctor's appointments and running them on various errands. And this is the reason, again, this has become so popular as a job is that it's an opportunity that's pretty low stress, and a lot of times drivers can set their own hours and have fun. And many newer opportunities in this area are ride-share companies such as Uber and Lyft. The next hot job is professional caregiving. Caring for others is a great option for older workers and offers on-the-job training and flexible scheduling. It's also popular because many feel that the work is meaningful and an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of older adults and their families. There's a caregiver actually that works at home instead. Her name is Cookie. She was the first female African-American firefighter in her community, and she worked as a firefighter for many years. But after retirement, she still wanted to provide care and support to her community, and someone told her about a job as a caregiver, and she really has embraced her second career in life and really, really enjoys it. Next opportunity is a retail salesperson, and this job category is especially plentiful this time of year. We're entering the holiday season, so there are a lot of seasonal jobs available. This job also offers a lot of variety, and older workers can work in retail settings that appeal to their passions or hobbies. For example, if an individual likes to sew, they could work at a fabric store, or if they enjoy fishing, they could work at a sporting goods store. So retail opportunities, again, are plentiful in today's society, and also they offer opportunities to connect with others and stay socially engaged. A fourth hot job is work in the culinary arts. For someone that enjoys cooking, they could really turn that hobby into a second career. And this job allows for creativity, which can help with that cognitive stimulation that is so important to older workers. The last one listed on this slide is an administrative assistant. This job can be done, again, in a variety of settings, and it's an opportunity to meet new people and continue to use job skills in new and different ways. A quick example of this is Diane. She was an office manager for many, many years, and after she retired, she ended up taking on a part-time job as an administrative assistant at a local mortuary. She had actually lost an adult son 10 years prior to retirement, so she really is able to empathize with the families that the mortuary serves and is able to use her skills to give, again, back to her community. So we have some more hot jobs listed here on the next slide. A tour guide is a great job opportunity for those who have an interest in history or art. A job as a tour guide can be a great job post-retirement and can allow them to put their knowledge and experience to work. And I have a friend whose father actually is a retired sheriff, and he has always loved the outdoors and now gives seasonal tours at the local national park in his community. Childcare and being a mentor is another meaningful way to give back. Many retirees enjoy working with children. They often say that it keeps them young. And these jobs often require, again, minimal training and flexible hours. And for those that feel a higher calling, clergy and counseling might be a great job opportunity. Again, it allows older workers to put their passion to work and to help others, and to build long-lasting relationships. The ninth hot job listed here is a library assistant. Many older adults want to connect with individuals of all ages, and libraries are a great place to do that. And it's also a great opportunity to turn a love of books and reading into a second career. And finally, a tutor is another hot job that we see older workers taking on. And it really is a great job because it's adaptable to the individual's experience and knowledge, and it's very flexible as well. We see a lot of retired teachers and professors that go on to be tutors in their retirement years. So now I want to shift to some resources that you can pass along to those that you work with and interact with that are considering a job post-retirement. There's a great website called unretireyourself.com, and on this site, it's kind of a one-stop shop for those that are considering unretiring. There are great career stories. I've actually shared a few of them throughout today's webinar, so you can go out there and watch their videos, read their stories. There's also great resources on this website. There's also a quiz to discover your career fit. Who doesn't like a good quiz? I've actually taken it, and it's pretty in line with what I'm doing in my career, so it's pretty accurate. But if somebody is thinking about unretiring and they're not sure, what area to consider, that's a great place. That quiz is a great way to help give suggestions on an area where they might consider working or volunteering. And then also those age-friendly business principles that I mentioned also can be downloaded on this site. And then here are some final resources. Retirementjobs.com is a great site if an older worker wants to go out there and search for opportunities for retirees. And then LinkedIn, I'm sure many of you out there listening today have a LinkedIn account. LinkedIn also posts jobs and can help you in your job search. And then encore.org is a great website that provides a lot of great resources. And then for those looking for volunteer opportunities, the National Senior Corps is a great website where they can learn more. AARP also has great resources on their website, so we can send them there for more information. And Career One Stop has some great resources on there as well. And then for those looking for jobs as professional caregivers, you can always visit homeinstead.com. And for more volunteer opportunities, volunteermatch.org is a great way to connect an older adult with opportunities to volunteer in their areas of interest. I'll also mention that many area agencies on aging have great opportunities for older workers to volunteer. Perhaps it's through their home repair programs or through their senior companion, foster grandparent programs. So we can direct older workers to their local area agencies on aging for those type of opportunities as well. So I'm so glad that you have tuned in today to learn more about working after retirement. Again, this is a growing trend that we're seeing more and more. People are redefining what it means to be retired. They're finding creative ways to be self-employed or to make some extra funds to help fund their retirement years. And we know from the research that people are pursuing these unretirement careers, not only for the financial stability, but also to find fulfillment and meaning, to give them a sense of purpose in their retirement years, to fight boredom, and to stay cognitively and socially engaged, which we know in the field of aging are all vital things that are important in holistic aging and in healthy aging. So with that, I'm going to send it back to you, Steve, for any questions that the audience might have today.
Great. Thank you very much, Lakeland. As Lakeland just mentioned, everyone, it is time for the Q&A portion of today's webinar, so please send in those questions now at this time, and we will pose them to Lakeland here. And Lakeland, let's get started here with the first question. Do older workers who have retired typically need support and help to find a satisfying part-time position and or to start a business?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on the individual and their situation. Some might need more assistance than others. For those that are looking to start a small business, I forgot to add to the resource slide, my apologies, that this Small Business Administration has great resources for those that are wanting to start a small business. So that might be a great way to support somebody who's looking to maybe sell their custom-made items, maybe through an online platform, or to open a coffee shop that they've always wanted to open, or those types of things. So again, some older adults might need more assistance and guidance than others. For those that have maybe worked for one company for most of their career, and now they're looking to switch industries or to switch jobs, they might need a little more assistance than somebody who has held several jobs throughout their careers and are more used to regularly updating their resume, that sort of thing. Also, I'll say that I mentioned a lot of applications are accepted online. A lot of the job and interviewing process happens with a component of technology. So if an older adult is less tech savvy, I would say, they might need some additional assistance in their job search. But the great news is there's so many great tools and resources out there for older workers as they're engaging in this second career or a search to volunteer, that sort of thing. So I would definitely have whoever asked this question recommend some of the resources that I shared, and I'll flip back to that slide. That way we can keep those up there a little longer. But that's a great question.
Okay, perfect. And speaking of resources, like you just mentioned, we had a few folks write in with some additional resources that they wanted to share.
Awesome.
So if you wouldn't mind, I would like to give those a plug right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. First one here, just want to share another program from the Department of Labor Senior Community Service Employment Program, which is a job training program for people 55 plus. And that was a jumble of words, so I'll say that to you again. The Department of Labor Senior Community Service Employment Program is another resource if anybody would like to check that out. And secondly, on that same token, I would add that the Senior Community Service Employment Program, which is SCSEP, is also a resource for older adults 55 and over that may want to re-enter the workforce. And again, that's the Senior Community Service Employment Program, which is SCSEP. That's a resource for older adults 55 and over. So thanks for sending in those extra resources again, everybody. Back to the questions here, Lakeland. Can you please go over again the multiple generations that you mentioned earlier with the age frames?
Yes. And before I do that, I did a quick search, and I think that the SCSEP that you just mentioned, more information can be found at seniorserviceamerica.org. So again, seniorserviceamerica.org. So the generations, I'm happy to go back over those quickly. We do know that, again, there are more generations than ever that are working together today, at least more so than there have been in the history of our society. So the oldest generation is the silent or traditionalist generation, and they're born between 1925 and 1946. So they're characterized as more dedicated and loyal, respectful, but sometimes they're stereotyped as old-fashioned, rigid, and unwilling to change. And then we have the baby boomers. They get a lot of press. They're born between 1946 and 1964. They're often competitive, focused, and goal-oriented, but can be stereotyped as power-driven workaholics, and really sometimes they're also stereotyped as in pursuit of their own personal gratification. So then we go to Generation X, and they're born between 1964 and 1981. And this generation thrives on more of a balanced lifestyle. But they've been also stereotyped as cynical, impatient, and selfish. And then when we look to the millennials, also they get also a lot of press, especially when it comes to the workplace. They're also referred to as Generation Y, born between 1982 and 1995. They're often seen as hopeful, fun-seeking, and ambitious, but are sometimes stereotyped as being spoiled, disrespectful, and overly dependent on technology. And then the final generation, the youngest generation, who are just starting to enter the workforce, is Generation Z, and that's those born after 1995. And this generation is very entrepreneurial and tech-savvy. They want independence, but they also might be stereotyped as expecting a lot from their workplaces, expecting them to conform to the needs of Generation Z, and they expect a lot of rewards, kind of the trophy generation maybe, as some would say it. So those are the various generations in the workplace. Since I work at a senior company, a senior-focused company, we do have a generations task force within our organization where we celebrate all of the different generations, but we also focus on our commonalities because research does show that when too much focus is given to the differences in the generations, it can be sometimes harder for the generations to work together. So if you are working amongst various generations, I would just go out there and search. There's so much information on the generations. It's a very hot topic these days. So perhaps learn about the different generations, but I think more importantly, try to find commonalities that you share. And fundamentally, most generations share a value of family and friendship and a value of doing meaningful work. So if we can work to find commonalities among all generations, it can help companies be more productive and minimize the challenges that could divide the generations. So I hope that was helpful. Sorry if I ran through that too quickly the first time around, but thank you for that question.
Okay, great. Next question, Lakeland. Are there barriers in terms of post-job opportunities based on previous work experiences and work field?
You know, that's a good question. I think that, again, this can be situational. When it comes to the barriers, there are some jobs that older adults there are some jobs that require little experience or on-the-job training, and there are other jobs that would require a more specialized skill set. So when working with older adults, there was a slide where I talked about kind of making a plan. I think that's important for older adults to do when they're thinking about entering the workforce again. I mean, I've talked to some retirees who say they kind of happened upon their post-retirement job. For some, they just wanted something kind of lighthearted and they saw an ad in the paper, or they happened to be at the location of their current job and saw the help wanted sign and were inspired to apply. And others were very strategic in the pursuit of their second career. I've known some retirees who start a consulting business in their line of work. They're taking their expertise over their career and then going on to provide consulting on that area of expertise to organizations. And it still gives them the flexibility that they desire in retirement. So it really is dependent on, I think, the older adult and what they're looking to get into. But you're never too old to learn. I mentioned a lot of colleges and universities are starting to offer more education to older adults and to retirees. So I would say if there are barriers that exist, an older adult should look into, are there ways to overcome their barriers in terms of training that they can receive or certification that they can receive that would allow them to continue to pursue that particular career interest? But that's a really great question. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Lakeland, we have hit the 11 o'clock hour, and unfortunately we're out of time, so it's time for us to wrap up. But I want to thank you for joining us for a great presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you.